Here are the best ways to set up your camera for quickly taking great photos with limited knowledge of manual exposure settings. And to be honest, most people can just stop here with this setup and be very happy if you're looking to have a simplified, less involved photography approach. So first things first, I'm going to set the image quality settings to fine, JPEG plus RAW, and then we're going to set the JPEG to be large in the 3:2 aspect ratio. I'm going to set the film simulation to Provia standard, and as far as white balance go, I'm going to set this to auto. The next thing that we're going to change is the auto ISO settings, and we're going to set the default ISO to 160 and the maximum ISO to 12,800. And then the minimum shutter speed is going to be either 1/160 or 1/125, depending on if you think you're going to be in more brighter situations or extremely low light situations indoors. So we're going to put the camera into what's called aperture priority mode, which means that you can change the aperture and everything else is going to change automatically. In order to do this, we're going to put the shutter speed dial at the top to A, and then we're going to set the aperture to its largest aperture. And then I want you to set the photometry or the metering mode to average or multi. And if your camera has it, we're going to go into the display settings and turn on the blinking highlight warning. Basically, anytime anything is blinking, you want to make the photo exposure a little bit darker. I recommend using autofocus single and manually moving the focus point with your D-pad, joystick, or LCD touchscreen. As far as autofocus goes, you'll want to use the AFS or autofocus single for still subjects, and then use AFC or continuous for anything that's moving. Now we're going to set the autofocus release priority to focus for AFS, and then we're going to set it to release for AFC. So the basic workflow is to point your camera at the intended subject, move the autofocus point to your liking based on where you want the subject to be within the composition of your photo, press halfway to start metering and autofocusing on the subject. If it's too dark, then you want to move the exposure compensation dial of your camera in the plus direction. If it's too bright, then you want to move the exposure compensation in the negative direction. Half press again and then take the photo all the way by pressing the shutter all the way down. This is pretty much the quick start setup for your Fujifilm camera.